just for everybody here today, but it's always helpful for me to know who's here with us today. This is a little bit of a different spin from what we have been doing. We're actually going to give a little bit more specific content about something new and different that I think can really help engage students. And so we're going to talk about this digital badge credentialing, and let's dive on in. So I have some objectives for the day, so you can kind of get a sense of where we're going to be heading with this. We're going to demystify these DBCs, digital badge credentials, and take a look at how it's being used, and then some, background as to why it's important. And then I'm going to really try and hope that the internet gods help out with me here in terms of showing you what it might look like for some students for moving along. And, we know that the clock is always ticking, right? We know even during COVID, our students who have transition goals on their IEPs need to have some experiences, whether you're on remote or whether you're not. So most of our webinar Wednesdays for the past 6-7 months-ish have been about remote and hybrid learning. We're going to talk about this topic of digital badge credentials and blend it into how that can even transpire, whether you're remote, hybrid, or face-to-face. So it's a kind of a tall order, but we're going to try and give that a shot. Okay, time for true confessions. When I was growing up, my uncle was a Boy Scout troop leader. My father was an assistant Boy Scout troop leader. My brother was trying to be an Eagle Scout, and my mother wanted me out of the house on Friday evenings. So as a young child, I did tag along behind my dad and my brother and uncle, and I went to the Boy Scout meetings. But then later on, I also became a Scout and Girl Scouts. And then even further later on, I had my two daughters who both went through Brownies and Girl Scouts. And what we used to call these things here, these were merit badges. And we don't use that word merit badge quite often enough right now, but keep that in your mind as we start talking about all these other kinds of badges. So I spoke with a lot of educators in preparation for today and had some even help me. And you will probably recognize a whole bunch of these different types of badges in education. It's really very common in terms of professional development. The whole concept of micro-credentialing is really taken on just a whole new life of its own. So you can see from lots of different vendors that are out there, certification programs that allow you to demonstrate to the administration and your school what you can do, above and beyond. We're always adding in these layers of information. My husband looked at this and he said, "Oh, do you remember the Humphrey Bogart movie, The Treasure of Sierra Madre?" Where they say, "We don't need no stinking badges." In this case, yeah, we do. And they're actually well beyond education as well. So ETA's the electrician, you've got a EMT, there's a phlebotomist badge, there's plumber's badges. There's all sorts of different badges out there. I'm sure you could come up with a whole bunch of different ones by just kind of surveying your friends and family to see what types of badges they have within different industries. But as we start to talk about transition, I want to talk about transition goals that are achievable. And, in special ed, one size does not fit all, right? We absolutely need to be able to figure out how we can fit different types of programs like workforce preparation, life skill preparation, and provide it with different types of acknowledgments to engage the students and incent them, but to do it at their level, right? Because if they were going after, badges like this, it might not be as successful for all of them. And so we want to make sure that it is right sized. So with that, before I dive into the digital badges, let me introduce very quickly Education Associates. For those of you who don't know our organization, this ain't our first rodeo. We have been around for 40 years, I believe, as of July 2021. So I'm a firm believer that you don't go to the next year until you hit that day in the calendar. So I'll talk about 41 years after we hit July. But I believe that Education Associates has stood this test of time because of this adherence to all of the things you see here. Hands-on being top of the list. It's really so important. It's really the way that gets kids going. I'm going to stop for a moment. I see somebody asking about closed captioning, and thank you. Oh, I lost the name right now. Oh, there it is, Kelly. So Kelly, let's see if this is going to pop on the closed captioning for us. Here we go. It's going to go like this. All right. Now that should help you. Good. There goes the closed captioning. Thank you, Kelly. So when it comes to education associates, I'm not giving you a sales pitch about it. I just want you to have an understanding of who we are, the focus on hands-on, on evidence-based practices, on universal design for learning, on correlation to both academics and CTE, right? So we really very, very strong in this regard. We cover a lot of different types of areas. So there's life skills, there's job skills, and we do have our own badges. So you don't really have to take my word for it, but we've been approved and validated by the Department of Education acknowledged as a model program for National Dropout Prevention Center. And you can see some of the other ones here. The one that always comes up as a question is this one here called NOCTI, NOCTI, and that's the National Occupational Competency Testing Institute. And they are the ones who really helped us dive into this digital badge credentialing. And so we'll talk a little bit about them and use that as a piece as well. And of course, I can't leave here without pointing out that last year we got our case endorsement, and that really means a lot to us because the case endorsement's like a little mini dissertation. If you haven't heard me say it before, it just is. We've really had to present our research and establish that the preliminary research matched up with what you see out in the field. And we had to defend that presentation. It was very exciting to get that for us here. The curriculum that we have is both job skills and life skills. I'm not going to go into them in depth. We do have a really easy to use way for you to get a full deep dive demo so you can see all the different topics that are covered. We cover well over 100 different career choices. We've got hands-on kits. We've got it adapted so that it can be taught for our very severe and profoundly impaired students, all the way up to students who are pretty high functioning. So if you want to learn more about that, Ben has put a link in the chat box, and maybe he'll even put the link in the chat box where you can sign up for a free personal tour, because that's also fun to do. And you can see some of those job titles here, and that's complemented with our life skills curriculum. So there's over 62 different titles categorized into 4 key topic areas that they really are complementary. Again, we blend in some differentiation of instruction and variety of resources for people so that they can enjoy both, working on these life skills and providing it at the level that the students will work at best. So without further ado, I'm going to take a look at how you might be addressing, let's move forward. Thank you. How you might be addressing the digital badges within the context of work preparation, transition for workforce, and transition for life skills as well. So that's really the context of where we're going to be going with this today. And I think y'all knew that when you signed on up. But let's talk about why. Why digital badges, and why would we even say we have a badge ecosystem? It's more than just a certificate. It's more than just a little icon that you might put on a screen or that you might have on a resume. Digital badges have some more information built into it. So from the person who is earning the digital badge to the people who are displaying it for you, your school, or the people who are viewing it, potential employers, there are little pieces of information that really make a big, big difference. And overall, it's a positive impact to connect the dots between those learners, employers, and the workforce as it goes on through. In this pandemic world that we're living in, we're really, the number one thing people are really looking for right now are ways to engage their students. And I feel that this might be one of those things that could just be, that added little element where students and parents would say, oh, well, that's new. Oh, well, that's something I can really take with me. Oh, that's something I can use to go and actually look for a job within my community. So like to engage students, validate their skills, and really try and help, especially in places where we're looking for students. We haven't, with some places are really having a large number of students that are missing because they are not interacting on a regular basis. So yeah, it's an important motivator as things go on through. And obviously, I don't need to tell you, helping students with special needs find viable paths to employment within the community is definitely of critical importance, and there's a big difference between the ratio of people who are um, employed within the community who have disabilities and those who do not. So that's a big issue, as well as graduation rates. And we know that they're on the rise. So the good news is that you all are doing a great job, because since before even 2015, where this data was showing, um, way back since 2011, the graduation rate for students with special needs was more like in the 40 to 50% range. And now it's starting to creep up as things are going on ahead. The employment ratio is not catching up at that same level, right? So we have over 67% of students with special needs who are graduating, and the data that's out there is still from 2017, but indicators are that subsequent years have been also in that same level. But the employment ratio is still, there's a big gap there, right? So that gap is what we're trying to address and what we're trying to focus on here. And our feeling is that there are certain things that we can do to bridge that gap. And just like anything else that we're trying to do with students who need some extra modifications, we want to explicitly teach those employability skills, both how to get a job and then um, samples of things like job skills and tasks that they could do. And then we want to be able to help showcase those skills to employers, because it does no good if you've trained a student or a group of students on how to work effectively within any particular job area if the employers that are out in your community don't know about it. So another reason for the digital badges is to help bridge that employability gap. And we actually use the digital badge credentials through all areas of our curriculum. So you can get a digital badge credential just for a life skill or just for career exploration, as well as for actual job preparation, because we cover a whole range of students. And we want students who may not be high functioning to be just as motivated as their peers. We try and make sure that it's an equitable access to those types of rewards, like a digital badge credential, as we go on through. And so we did reach out to the National Occupants. See, sometimes it just kind of loses it. The National Occupational Certification Testing Institute. Whew, we do live with acronyms, don't we? But we reached out to them because they have a pretty amazing program themselves, and they helped us create some of these. And let me unpack that a little bit for you. So first of all, this is kind of what our little credentials look like. Our little badges all have a similar look and feel. And even though it looks like a sticker or it looks like a certificate that you might get, it is actually jam-packed full of metadata, which is a fancy way of saying that we pack into this little icon the information that helps you understand what the badge is for, how it was issued, what's the criteria, any evidence that might be on out there. So it's really kind of baked into it, and it is becoming more and more the thing. So for instance, here's what, when you click on this green badge, and I'll go into it live in a bit, here's what you might get from this. You might get all of the detailed information, the name, who it was issued to, when, the list of criteria, and I'm going to go into it live in a second. I just want you to get a sense of what it looks like. And you have an opportunity for going ahead and sharing it in lots of different ways. In fact, as we take a quick moment to go ahead and take a look at this in our badge locker, you'll be able to see what the different ones are and how they kind of all um, build on up together. So before we go there, let me just tell you a little bit that these are part of our curriculum. It's one part of the curriculum that's not just a one-time purchase. It's something that's on the side, but it's really at a very affordable rate, and it's an unlimited number of teachers and students. What happens on the student side of it is that they are going to go through the curriculum. They're going to demonstrate the necessary competencies to show proficiency. And then the teacher is going to go on in and enter them on into the system. They'll get an email. It tells them, congratulations, you've been awarded a badge. And then they can go on into the digital badge locker itself. Um, there's a little bit more to it. So there's, opportunities to kind of designate those students who are both competent and highly proficient with any range. And let's go ahead and take a look at the system itself. So when I sign on in as a student, I can see all the different digital badges that are awarded to me. So there are a number that are in here. The blue are the life skills and the green happen to be the job skills, but I can come on in and say, I've take a look at the auto detailing basic level. And I heard a presentation last year. It was really kind of interesting. Superintendent and Assistant Super from Aurora, Colorado, talking about a program similar to this for their CTE program, the vocational program for students. And I asked them, I said, so what do students need in order to be part of this program? And they said that they take students with a 9th grade or better reading level, which is great for them, but it does leave a lot of our special needs students out. So that's okay. I understand there's different, different roles, different things. But I said, what do you do with them when you're done? And they said, we have them create a LinkedIn profile. So I share that with you guys right now, because whether or not you're using a digital badge credentialing system like this or not, you can still create a free LinkedIn profile. And that really is a 21st century resume, right? So you can go ahead and it'll pop on out to LinkedIn. I do like the idea though, because sometimes, the manager in a, let's say auto detailing in my car dealership, they have a unit where they do auto detailing so that when the cars go in and out, they get detailed. That's lovely. And it's a great service that they offer. And so I could actually just hit print and walk on in with that as a documentation saying, here is what I've learned. And when they ask, well, what did you learn exactly? I can click right here, and here's a very specific, detailed list. And I don't know about you, but I think I'm managing, hiring director. We'll probably take a look at that and say, oh, that's pretty interesting. And if you can come back and say, well, that was the first level I took, and I went in and I liked it so much, I took a second level, and here's the difference with that. I think you have at least opportunity to come on in and work on a trial basis, right? And trying to get on into it and see what might be available to you. So kind of interesting. And while we're here, we're going to go ahead in just a little bit, and we're going to take a look at what it might be like for a student. So I'm not going to come back here again, but I will tell you that the table service is part of one of our expansive pieces of materials for learning how to work within the restaurant business. And you can see, take a mental snapshot of this in your head, setting a table, taking an order, bussing the table. So those are things this student has demonstrated competency with, and they've gotten a badge for it. So I'm going to go back to here, and we're going to try and unpack that yet a little bit further. I think you can see some of the benefits that this might really be offering. So whether for the educator, who can really gain by having those engaged students and being able to help them identify and catalog, substantiate your record keeping, substantiate attainment of transition skills on the IEP. I think it can help benefit employers to get a good snapshot of what that potential employee might have. And I think that for students, there's just a whole bunch And perhaps the most important right now is boosting their confidence level. Uh, so I'm taking a look to see if there's any questions. We're going to keep going for a bit right now. I will share that, we're in every state in the union and over 5,000 schools. Not everybody who has our curriculum has been using this quite yet. But as you can see here from Florence, South Carolina, that they did have some success with students being able to receive digital badge credentialing. And they did it in two different areas, developing a resume and verbal and nonverbal skills. Students have also qualified for other badges, and so they're really excited about it. And I think, you kind of get a little bit of an interruption in the flow of things with COVID. I think everybody's been experiencing that. So let's see how you might be able to take this and fit it into your environment now. So whether or not you've got students who are 100% remote, or students who might be 100% in the school, which is not that many places, but in some cases our special needs population have that in smaller groups, or whether it's some sort of a combination. Um, we're going to take some time to take a look at what it might be like for a student. And as you can see from this photo, this is a student who's using our curriculum in a school. They're using our curriculum and pre-COVID, and they were just going through a model, a role-playing situation in a school restaurant that was created in one of the rooms. And it's an awesome thing to be doing, but how do we replicate that kind of an experience when students are remote? Um, I'm going to start off in a different way than I normally do. Normally, I dive right into the curriculum and show you that. But right now, I'm going to go out of my comfort zone for a moment. I will give you full disclosure. I am not a Google certified educator. I do not have that badge, but I've got good friends who are, and they walked me through this, and I just couldn't believe how easy it was. So first thing is I'll tell you that our project discovery and our Achieve Life skills are available. They come on these thumb drives. And on that thumb drive, you have access to every piece of the curriculum in an editable format. So you're not having to kind of jump through hoops and invent anything. You're not having to rewrite anything. You might be doing some quick copying and pasting, but it was so quick and easy. And now I'm using the Google Classroom system as my example, but it doesn't matter. You can be doing this with any sort of file sharing system like Dropbox or Microsoft OneDrive or other types of file sharing systems that you may have, or with an LMS system. So if you're using Schoology or Canvas or any other sort of system, because you're basically taking files and making them available to students in the interface. So let me give you an example. And here's where I have, as a teacher, set up materials for a transition program for my 17 through 22-year-old students. There's a dialogue that goes on, so you can kind of have a running thread of discussion with the students in this interface. And what I did, in addition to other things that might be on the students' menu, math, writing, STEM, life skills, whatever, I included a career exploration unit. And when I come on into this, first I'll show you what it looks like in my unit itself. And let me close up some of the, I'll go to the instructions, close up some of those tabs. But here was the first look from our curriculum, and I'll show you what it kind of all looks like in a bit. But the student has gone through it. And I asked them, I said, when was the last time you were in a restaurant? Do you remember who was your table server? Did you like them? Why or why not? And so one of my students, Lewis, writes back, he did not know that you call a waiter or waitress servers. He did not know they do so many different things. So we can have a dialogue about it. Just get the student kind of working and get them moving along as they're going on through. If I wanted to add other things to this, and like I said, I am still the learning one here. So as we go on through it, I can add in other activities. So here is activity 1, and I can see that 1 was turned in already for me, and the student had gone through and done part of this work, and I can come in and take a look and see the attachments that he might have shared with me. So, whoops, there it goes. Okay, I can add comments. I love the way it continually helps me. But his mom actually took pictures of him as he was setting the table and using the materials. And I can come on in and take a look and see what the mom was able to just record. So this could be something that they did in school, or it could be something that they did, this is what's supposed to come out of, or they did in the classroom as well. Here is what I'm looking for. So we actually do the task analysis on each of our activities in our adapted version, and it tells the students step by step what do they need to do. And the instructions to the parent are really to mark down what they can do independently. And so that was the first attempt, was earlier today. And I can see that they needed some verbal support on a couple of different items. And then when we gather up the scoring, he did pretty well, got a lot of them together. There's a second attempt that'll happen tomorrow, so that what we're trying to work towards is mastery. So the student can do this all independently, because once you're done with the first activity, setting a table, you then go on to the second activity, which is taking an order. So once a table is set, I can set this on out, and then they're going to go to that. Now, I don't have to make all of this visible to the student at one time. I can have this behind the scenes so that they don't get distracted by having too many things available for them. But we've had a lot of teachers come on in, and they've provided access to students for all different pieces of the curriculum, like the various different worksheets that we have, or materials that kind of go on into other areas. All of our worksheets do a lot of different types of things. I'll show you it in a kind of a more organized fashion. But it's really quite simple. When I assign something to the student, it's going to show up in the student's inbox. So the student got an assignment, take a look at this. And that's where, when he clicked on it, he was able to walk on into and take a look at what his activities look like for the day. It's kind of easy. And I think that because of this, once you get a little bit more used to it, if you're working in Google, you're probably a lot more comfortable in it than I am. But once you get through with that, you'll be able to see that the student's work itself is going to be what you can measure to be able to put them on in for getting one of those badges as we move on through. Does that make sense? You can ask questions in the dialogue box there, in the chat box. So let me show you all the different options in a little bit more of an organized fashion. Each of the units begins with a pretest. So I could actually have the student going through that pretest, and then and notice they've got visual supports for students, especially those on the autism spectrum. So we can have them answering the questions, and you can see that the level of difficulty in the questions is really very different. So we want to get that good baseline. So everything from which is a fork, to taking a look at the place settings and which is complete, and then taking a look at being able to take an order and count up the change and the fee and the change. So we do a really across the board good swath at doing a pretest. And then we do that first look, which just introduces the student to the vocabulary, to the concept. And so that's where the student Lewis said, didn't realize that table service could be a server, could be a waiter or a waitress. So there are things that you don't know, and walk them through the big picture of what's going to be covered within the unit. And then we've got each activity spelled out step by step. And there's things like video modeling that can be assigned to the student, and we'll share one of those with you, and helping them figure out what the pieces are during the unit itself. That PowerPoint that walks through this activity number 1, the benchmarks of all the things that you need to do, is also provided in a visual schedule. And that's what I mean by the UDL, what I mentioned earlier, because these are all multiple ways of representing information, multiple ways of engaging students, and multiple ways of assessing. I may find that my student does not work well with this, that retaining the information from what you watched 20 minutes ago might not stick to when you're doing the task now. And that a visual schedule reminds the student of each of those discrete steps. Now, when it comes to doing the activity, I'm going to keep track of that, right? The same way that we saw what the parent had done. Um, but on that, I also need to indicate whether it's done independently or with a reminder, like a visual schedule, or with a verbal prompt, or with hand over hand. I mean, it can be as much or as little, but I'll keep track of that in each of the attempts as the student is working towards mastery. And while they're working on the actual job skill, we also keep going on over the vocabulary. We go over some of the logic, some of the math, having students really begin to identify the areas of what they know. And we keep kind of, I will just say it easily, double clicking on the topic. So we're really going deep without being incredibly repetitive, without being boring, so that we can have things that are fun and engaging for the students. And that even goes to playing games like a bingo or a kind of board game that you might walk through the whole lesson with the students. Um, the other thing we have, which is pretty awesome, are some real scenarios. And I know some people have to take a real hard look about what they do with students during synchronous time, like what we've got right now. We're all on this Zoom together. We're all listening to something and asking questions and talking about it. Um, but during that synchronous time, you may not want to just be going through the PowerPoint or going through the video modeling. You might want to flip the classroom and have the student do that on their own. And while you've got the synchronous time, which is valuable, let's do a role play about how to bust a table and what it might sound like, and let students take on different roles. Or the situation piece to it. I love this one. Miriam is busting a table. As she carries the bus tray into the kitchen, a glass falls to the floor, the glass breaks. What should Miriam do? Right? So if you follow me, maybe if the student has done the pre-work the night before, watched the video modeling, gone through activity one, and they're in the midst of working on this, when I've got synchronous time with that student, one-on-one or in a small group, I'm going to bring up this situation example and we can all talk about it. What would you do if the glass broke? Well, I'd pick it up. But you've got to be careful because you could get your hand cut and that would be dangerous. Oh, but what if it's in a high traffic area? There's a lot of people walking. You might need to raise your hand and let somebody know that there's something dangerous there. And in fact, your manager might even tell you, let's put a sign up that says the floor is wet or there's dangerous while you take the time to clean it up. So there's a lot of things to consider, and I'd rather have those discussions with my students in a safe environment where they could give me a wrong answer and then we can talk it through and help them see the right answers, so that it doesn't happen the first time they think about this is not while they're on the job. And I think that's what makes it really real and gives students things that they can do. But we really do think of everything, including giving you sample items like a lunch menu, or play money if you don't have your own play money. I remember in my classroom we had so much play money that I thought I was a billionaire for a while. But making these things up yourself is usually what you end up spending till midnight the night before. You don't have to do that. We've got all of those pieces kind of baked into the whole thing. And it really does become easy to begin to walk students through each of these steps as they're going along. So does that make sense for y'all? Um, I do want to kind of come back and just kind of share that as a teacher, and I think I can do this. We're going to challenge it, right? I'm going to come on in to my activities center here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try and add in an additional piece. So I'm going to come on down and let's see if I can get on in and edit activity. Oops, I have to edit activity 2. Here we go. And these are all the things that I've put in here, a lot of the worksheets, a lot of the pieces that are in there, but I can simply just go ahead and I can add a file, and it might be from my drive, and I'm going to add in a menu activity. And this might be something that I'd like a student to work on that may not have had, right, so here's what it looks like. There's the menu that they can work with. And I can add some instructions in there for them and say the student can edit the file, they can work with the file, but I can also just kind of create something around that and say, give them some examples of what I'd like them to be doing and working with as they go on through. So I can give them those instructions as we go along into the piece. So I can say something like perhaps, let's take this to the next level. Can you make up a menu for your family dinner tonight? Here's an example. And I can just keep that as part of what they've got to work with and let them. So that might be for students that need to take the materials that we've already got and bump it up. Might not be for everybody, but it's certainly a way that I can go ahead and save that. And the students that I have this assigned to will get a notification that that's available to them. So I hope that makes some sense there. And assigning things to the students is as easy as just coming on into the folder itself. And I can either view the assignment or I can add it to them over on the side and assign it to all of my students or assign it to just a couple of students. And like I said, I am not the Google Classroom expert, but I know some, and I'm thankful for their help in trying to get this together. So flipped classroom is an idea. Having students reflect on what they did. I don't think I showed you that, but this student, I did. I showed you where the student had all of his comments on there for me, and I could come on in and see what some of his comments were. Oh, I like to eat after setting the table. Why did they have to take the plates away? So that was one of his comments as it came on through within here. And just kind of a thing just to say, students themselves can really be active participants in their own learning and can guide you as to what might help make it a more meaningful time with them. And then when we're back over on the badge locker, we did take a look and we saw that the student had their credential laid out for them. Wanted to show you also on the NOCD site itself, National Occupational Competency and Testing Institute, the different categories that they have. I think that all by itself, this is really very, I would just say, let me get to the main blueprint of it here. I think that this is kind of inspirational for students in themselves, that they can see what other types of programs are out there. And here's a whole index of all different things that they have. So you can see along the side here, accounting and administrative assistants and so forth. And it just goes on and on. They really have quite a number of different career clusters that they address. And I think this might give us the overview for all of them right in there. So they'll talk to you about what it is and a little bit more of pieces that are in there. If you go on into any one of those credentials, you'll see that there's a lot of materials that they provide. It's really similar to what we do within our curriculum. So this might be your more general ed and real life business kind of exploration, and being able to take a look and see what is available for students and people who are out there in these areas. And when they go on into any one of these credentialing, there were some that were specific to states. So in New York State, there's a cosmetology credential that was available. And for Gen Ed, that's all great and good. We also have both our hair and nail kits and materials that will help students in the cosmetology area So it really provides an equitable playing field. Our students may not be able to launch on into this NOCD network, but they can certainly launch on into our network and be able to be awarded these different types of accolades and recognition as they're going on through. So let me take a look because I see some good questions popping on up. And I'll take one while Ben and Michelle decide if they're going to pop on up again. But Nick, I love your question. And he asked, do any of our credentials include professional activities? For example, the food service, does it have a serve safe food handler certification? It does not have the food safe service, serve safe food handler certification in there, but we address those skills. Similarly, and the example that I usually use, and it's up here on my screen, remember the auto detailing criteria? So here's the advanced level. And I've been asked several times, is there a professional certification like OSHA certification? And the answer is no, we don't have an OSHA course. However, we make sure that students know how to maintain a safe work environment by complying with both the EPA and OSHA standards. So for our students that need to take everything and have it explicitly taught and go step by step and master it as they're going along, this is the first step. And a student who can go through this level of rigor in terms of working on automobile detailing, that student is going to be ready to take an OSHA course and or certification, or be more ready, right? So we can't just dive into the deep end of the pool sometimes. So I think that our table service criteria begins with the serve safe, with lots of the safety criteria. And we have several different courses in the food service industry. So we have a lot of different ways where we continually come back and reiterate and go through to try and make sure that the students would be ready for some of those things, like a serve safe food handler certification. Good question, Nick. I appreciate that. Ben, you look like you've seen some other questions that you might want to pass along.
I've seen a few. So one of the questions, and I can't remember if everyone saw some of these questions. If I'm just going to repeat them anyway, because not everybody hawks over the chat like I do. But Joyce, you can answer these, or I can answer them, whatever you're more comfortable with. But one of the questions has to do with the criteria for the badges. When you click on those links that say view detailed criteria, I think you've spoken to this some, but what is that, and where does that come from? What is that criteria?
So if you recall, in our table service, setting a table activity 1, we have this because it's an adapted kit. We have it really enumerated in terms of the task analysis of 16 steps that it takes to set a table. In other courses, those benchmarks are a little bit more detailed. They're not quite as task analyzed, but they're enumerated throughout, and they're actually the same sort of benchmarks that we put right within here. So the teacher is working with the benchmarks to help the students learn how to execute that skill. And then they're observing multiple times to try and help the student reach automaticity, or at least independence in working through a particular task. And sometimes a student might need that, visual schedule, that reminder to keep them on task. But hopefully we're working towards independence so they can go and get that job, right? So does that, Ben, do you think that kind of covers it? I mean, these criteria were really developed by teachers as they were creating our curriculum.
I think it covers it, and more so. I think the simple answer would just be that is the criteria from our curriculum that we put right there in the digital badges. But you went even further and explained a little bit more about where we get that criteria in the first place, written by the educators that create our curriculum. Right. Another common question that we get has to do with the subscriptions. We haven't really, this isn't a sales pitch, so we haven't really talked much about pricing or anything like that, but there's sometimes can be some confusion, and I can just go ahead and answer this about the digital badge subscriptions and expiration dates on the badges, because what we don't want is our students to be awarded badges and then not be able to use them at some point, whether it's because the school stops using the program, or they graduate, or a certain designated time period has expired. So as Joyce is showing you there, the badges themselves don't expire. We will maintain that platform for the students as long as they need it, and provide them access to the information on the curriculum that they have earned. While the schools may purchase a subscription, which they can renew or let expire, the student badges will never expire.
Right. And that's an important piece because, the clock ticks on, as I said earlier, right? So I just look at it and say, this is a really cool way to really develop that 21st century kind of a resume. So good points. Linda had asked, what if a student is no longer interested in an activity and wants to choose another activity in the same career? Can the student jump around? That goes back to how you set up your, if you're going to be using something like this or your LMS. I didn't need to put all of these things on up here, right? I could have just had one activity and they can finish it. And I could also have made it contingent on other activities before they could get into it. Or the way it is right now, it's pretty open. So they could really come on in and they can say, yep, I'm going to create a dictionary. And this is one of the things that we have in our programs that are just really fun. Students can come on in and learn all the language and the vocabulary and so forth. Or maybe they want to go right into doing a role play. And so here was that role play that we were talking about before. And they can come on in. So it's up to you. You drive. This is your environment to determine. The cool part about it is you have all of that information available and you don't have to invent it from scratch. So I hope that makes sense, Linda. And cool.
And another common question that we will get, and it just has to do with the relationship between the curriculum and the digital badges. Because we have I can just tell by looking at our attendee list today, we have some current customers, some names that are familiar to me, and I'm sure we have some new people too. So that means we have some current users of Education Associates, Project Discovery, and Achieve Life Skills curriculum, and then people that are new. And so the easy answer is that the digital badge credential program is a relatively new program for us, as Joyce explained, and it is an add-on program. It's something that we think really enhances the value of our existing curriculum. So you can continue using our curriculum without it. You can purchase our curriculum without it. And then you can also choose to add that to your purchase. You do need to have the curriculum to use the digital badge credentials. So you can't just subscribe to the program without having the applicable curriculum, whether that's something that you purchased earlier or that you're going to purchase at the same time. It would be sort of like giving you a diploma without, giving you the classes that qualify you for that diploma if we did that. So I hope that helps some of the questions.
That's good. Cool. All right. And just take a look at the time. You know what? I think there's a couple more. You put some good links there. Michelle put something on up there as well. So we're happy to kind of go through and do a personal tour of this with you if you'd like. But just taking a look at the time, I will let you know that there will be an archive of this webinar up on our site for our webinar Wednesdays. And there's also the archive there of all of those webinars since last June. So it was really just after all the schools shut downs had begun and everything, and we started interviewing people about how they're using our materials in a remote environment. So a lot of them are all around those topics, and so you can go ahead and take a look at that. There's also a whole slew of pieces of information that we have up on our website that will provide you with some more tips and tricks about how you can use the materials at home. So a lot of those things from the webinars and what we've been learning from people have gathered here, including a really detailed list per title in our curriculum of things that you can find around the house that parents could help support their students in doing an activity like the table service activity as it's going on through, right? So there's a lot within that. And there's some additional materials that if you want, you can go onto our site and go to our contact form and ask for this. Is what we have as our guidance documents about how students could be, whether they're in a hybrid situation or they're in a distance learning situation, how you could be using the materials with them. And we've got that for all of the pieces of curriculum that we have. This was developed by several teachers that we've been working with, and it's really outstanding. It kind of takes the panic out of having to go remote. On the bottom of each of the pages on our website, there's a spot that looks like this red bar here at the end. You can subscribe to our monthly newsletters, and that also provides you some rich content for you to use or for you to share with others. It's just, things, for instance, in this particular case, Cheryl Hubbard George from Florence, South Carolina, had shared with us some of her perspective as an administrator and what that and how she was approaching transition and job skill preparation. We've got preview packets, all full of really great ways you can. What I love about this is that you can actually hear and see some of the audio and the videos that we have included. And oops, going on into that. Like it or not, we'll go to the next one. And then we also have the opportunity for you to sign up for your own personal Zoom if that's what you'd like to do. And have what I found has been really common about this is that people have been coming on to here with their teams. So it's the transition coordinator and several teachers or service providers and so forth that'll come on in, and we'll do a deep dive Zoom to see about which materials they might want to adopt and blend into their own curriculum as they're going through. Ben, do you have anything else you'd like to add in terms of resources and learning more?
I don't think so. I see Michelle's putting them up into the chat there, which is fantastic. Joyce, you've been doing a great job of showing them to us there on the presentation. We do email a link to this Zoom video out to everyone who has attended. So within the next day or two, you can look for those emails. You are welcome and encouraged to share those with your colleagues. They will need to, just like you did, register to watch the video, just like you registered to attend. But we like to provide lots of ways for you to contact us, including our phone numbers up there. So please feel free. And this is a lot of information, so we will be happy to walk you through it and answer some more detailed questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we're just shy of our hour mark. And so I just want to thank you all very much for spending your time here with us today. We're happy to answer any additional questions. We're not running away, but if you do need to get off to your next thing, we totally understand. And we really appreciate your time today and hope that this might give you just another way to highly engage your students and to provide them with something concrete that can say, not only have I learned this great new set of skills, but I can show it off to potential employers within your community. So thank you all very much. Have a great day. Be safe. See See you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
That's what we should just kind of say. Next month, first Wednesday of the month, we'll be having another one of these, and stay tuned. Look at your inbox. We'll send you information about how to register for that at that time.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Bye.